If choosing peace makes me hard to love, then so be it. Because apparently being clear is still intimidating to people. Cute, right? I mean, you say what you mean once, and all of a sudden you are the problem. And have you ever noticed how we apologize for being direct? Always when we say something like, sorry, I just meant da 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 da, when what we meant was actually what we said. And that pause before honesty, every woman knows it. And that micro hesitation before the truth leaves your mouth because you've learned honesty costs connection. And I used to call it compromise. Now I call it what it is. It's kind of a self-editing. Tiny edits, the softer words, the smaller posture, and we call it maturity, but it's actually fear. Fear of being too much, being too visible, being too loud, being too real. And before I make myself small, I'll stay single forever. And if that sentence makes you really uncomfortable, good. Because, it's just that I don't want love, but I refuse to lose myself to get it. And, those words, they don't come from ego, they come from healing because it's just not a rebellion, it's just clarity, it's choosing peace over potential. And healing taught me what I deserve, and boundaries always test whether I can live by it. And that's the real work, not raising the standard, but holding it. And holding it costs you something. Sometimes it costs you even people who loved your softness, but never your strength. You learn that saying no doesn't make you difficult, it makes you just honest. And here's the thing about healing, it's kind of clean until it's challenged. Everyone's enlightened in solitude, but try it when attraction shows up. Healing really taught me what I deserve, and my boundaries test whether I can live by it. And that's the real work, not raising the standard, but holding it. And holding it, it costs you something. And sometimes it costs you people who loved your softness, but never your strength. And you learn to say no this doesn't make you difficult, it makes you just honest. And here's the thing about healing, because it's clean until it's challenged. Everyone's enlightened in solitude, super easy, but try it when attraction shows up. Because when someone's sparks your old pattern, healing stops being theory and it becomes a practice, and not an easy one, to be quite honest. So where boundaries start to tremble, you'll recognize the test. You feel that pull to over-explain, to prove you're still a nice girl. And that moment decides whether the old you runs the show or the new you does. And holding a boundary isn't about confrontation. I think some people always get that wrong. It's just about consistency. And you don't have to raise your voice when you've raised your standards. It's not just the same thing. And you just repeat your clarity until the wrong ones walk away, because peace isn't found. It's protected, and it has to be protected. And sometimes protecting, it means staying single long enough to prove to yourself that your boundaries aren't negotiable. Also, me, I used to smile through discomfort, and I added smiley faces to make a boundary look cute and not so strong. And I traded honesty for harmony and called it love. And then, you know, what kind of came was pure anger. It was not loud, but it was very clear. Anger in every it's fine that I didn't mean. Anger, how often I managed everyone's comfort while nobody managed mine. And here's a real life example. When plans changed last minute, I always said, no worries, it's fine. But I felt a disappointment because I made room in my very full schedule. I hold up the space for this person and then not showing up or not texting back or whatever. And now I say, like, when plans change, please send me a new time or a new possibility. And if that's not possible for you, then I'll keep my evening free next time. So I'm not blocking out the time for you anymore. And that sentence, it's not to punish anyone. Boundaries, they aren't aggression, they're just clarity. And clarity will always trigger people who benefited from your confusion that you had before. So, still, you'll be tempted to edit yourself, to just stay easy. But that's the moment to breathe and stay clear. And because the cost of peace is always the discomfort of honesty. And, in the beginning, sometimes it doesn't feel good, but a day, a week later, you're proud of yourself that you really did hold on to your boundary. To tell you, it's wild how many women have quietly checked out of dating at the moment. Not because they hate men, but because they're just tired of it. Tired of being their healer, their chaser, the one who keeps giving chances to only end up with disappointment. And it's not that we as women have given up. It's more that we have grown up. We're done chasing chaos. And I mean, for myself, I choose calm, I choose presence and self-respect. And I think we're realizing peace just feels better than the potential. No, that's not disinterest. That's simply clarity. When you stop chasing attention, you become untouchable. And because your peace also finally has standards, and this isn't about checking out. It's more about of checking in with yourself. And because before I make myself small, I'll stay single, and that's not out of pride, and it's more out of protection, to be quite honest. And if you've ever wondered whether that makes you lonely, I mean, listen, loneliness from boundaries, that's just temporary. Exhaustion from self-betrayal, this is something permanent. And the right person won't need you quieter to love you louder. And once I stayed because of potential, you know that story. You meet someone and you don't fall for who they are, you fall for who they could be. And I always see flashes of growth, of promises, all the almosts. And I kept telling myself, it's getting better, but potential is always future tense. And presence is something here in the present moment. And for sure, every time I excused what wasn't working, I shrank a little bit as well. Every time I said, he's trying, he will get there, he can make it. And what I was really saying was, I'm hoping. And that's the hard truth. I have to be honest with you. It even hit me. But one night, I heard myself say, it's fine. And even my own voice didn't believe me. So that's when I realized I just wasn't in love anymore. I was just in negotiation with myself. And leaving wasn't dramatic then. It was very quiet because, when peace arrives and all the chaos stops, it stops being attractive. And once you have tasted peace, really truly tasted what peace feels like, then chaos feels like hunger, something that you don't want to have. If you're watching this and you're holding on to the maybes, maybe ask yourself, are you really loving the person or are you just loving the potential? Because potential never hugs you back, never kisses you back, and never supports you. And men keep saying women have changed. Yes, we have. I mean, we kind of had to. We stopped confusing fixing with loving, and we stopped chasing chemistry that burns louder than it lasts. And we started noticing who listens when we speak and not who just waits to talk, because this is also a huge difference. And, even Benny Blanco, the now husband of Selena Gomez, said it on Jay Shetty's podcast that it's not that women are complicated, men just don't listen. And he's so right. We're not confusing. We're just done explaining. And, listening isn't waiting for your turn to speak. It's staying long enough to fully understand what the other person has to say and not what you think they are saying. And when someone says, I'm fine, most of the time they're checking for safety and they're not picking a fight. You just have to listen. Also, like, listen to the tone, listen to their face, what the facial expression is telling you as well. And when someone maybe says, I don't know, then maybe they're tasking you if you're still curious, if you're still showing up, if you're still showing interest in them. And that's where relationships live or die, on whether we can hear without turning need into blame, because that's what most of the time happens, that we're always thinking we need attacks and we're blaming each other. No, we just have to listen to the needs of the other person. So what I most of the time use is my CMC framework. Have you heard of that? It's clarify, mirror, confirm. So clarify would be something like, when you say you're busy, because that's what we mostly hear. So I'm busy. What do you mean by that? Do you mean you're only busy today, in general, for a few days, for a few weeks? And then the mirror would be like, oh, I hear work is very heavy at the moment and I value your time. And confirm could be like, okay, then when we meet up at Friday, 7:30, let's put the phones down. Is that okay for you? So super simple technique, clarify, mirror, and confirm. And if someone calls that too serious, they mean too clear for their chaos. And clarity doesn't kill connection, it just filters for it. And let's go back to protection, because for me, protection always starts with respect. So here's what nobody wants to say out loud. Men were meant to protect, not to be what we protect ourselves from. I mean, this is kind of a very different angle. And protection isn't control, because some of you might say that now. It's just not control, it's awareness. It's creating a space for everyone to feel safe and where honesty doesn't cost connection. And women protect too. They protect by holding men accountable. They refuse comfort to replace growth, and by showing that strength without empathy is just noise. And please, this isn't a war between genders, it's more a wake up call for both. And women stop self abandoning, and men learn to listen and not label. And real connection now, I mean, it looks like boundaries spoken early, like two adults who repair instead of retreat. When conflict comes, because it will, I mean, we know that you don't vanish, you clarify, and you don't punish, you pause, you don't shrink, you steady. Because the moment you stop chasing the potential, you start protecting the peace, and that's when everything changes. Before I make myself small, I'll stay single, because the right person won't need me quieter to love me louder. Maybe this collective pause isn't about giving up on love. Maybe it's the beginning of something so much cleaner, something more honest, where we slow down to listen, to understand before reacting, to respect before reaching, because the goal was never to find someone who completes you. I mean, this you have to do yourself. Sorry to say it. But it's to build something together that doesn't require for you to disappear to make it work. And, here's my promise. And as you know me, I always keep my promises. Before I make myself small, I'll stay single. And that's not out of pride or ego, that's to really protect myself, to stay in my clarity, to stay in my peace that I worked so hard for several years now. And so now I really want to ask you, would you stay single for your peace or risk it all for potential? And let me know in the comments. I personally, I guarantee you, I will answer your questions, your comments, whatever you send me. And when we look back from how far we have come all over the Telenovela Jasmin episodes so far, I'm really excited for what's coming next. And I can tease already. The next episode, I'm gonna take you on a deep reset retreat, which is not a normal yoga retreat anymore, but also to like fully heal yourself, find clarity, find connection, not only to others, but first of all, to you, your body, your breath, your mind. And that's where it all starts. It always starts with you. And from that healed version of you, I think true love and true connection is possible.